Hello everyone, this is Michael Rotolo from SolidCAD. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on KnowledgeSmart online skills assessment and survey tools. With me today from the UK is our presenter, Tony Brown. He will take us through the product, benefits, and results that firms are recognizing after implementing KnowledgeSmart into their business. Some of you may already know that SolidCAD provides specialized training services on many different applications with the Autodesk and partner product portfolios such as AutoCAD, Revit, Civil 3D, Inventor, Bluebeam, and so forth. Part of our methods to deliver highly efficient and effective training includes assessing an end user applications and their knowledge of those applications to customize the courses. This has proven to increase many of firms' ROIs and their goal of developing the skills of their staff. As Canada's largest Autodesk Platinum partner, we're constantly asked by clients to determine the skill level of existing staff or participate in the screening processes of new hires to make sure that they have the right skills. The increase in these types of requests has led us to partner with KnowledgeSmart, whose tests and the subsequent reports that they develop provide a consistent and in-depth 360 view of a person's skills with the software. With that, I'd like to pass the session on to Tony to take us for a tour of the product. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Michael. So first check, can you hear me?
I can.
Excellent. Right then. Technology is working, and can you see the screen that says KnowledgeSmart introductory webinar?
We can.
Fantastic. Right then.
I'd also like to add, if you don't mind, that there is a questions panel that if anyone does have questions, by all means, please post them and we will try to review them at the end of the webinar. Otherwise, we'll get back to each individual person afterwards.
Yes, that's fine. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for taking the time to attend this webinar. As Michael said, my name's Tony Brown. I work for KnowledgeSmart. I'm based in the UK. Pretty wet and windy UK today, so I don't know what the weather's like where all you are, but I hope it's nicer than where I am. So what we're going to look at in the agenda this afternoon, I'll give you a little overview about what is KnowledgeSmart, how does it work, what insights into team and individual performance does it deliver, give you some idea of pricing, and if we've got the questions coming in at the end and we've got some time, then we'll take it. Now, this presentation is, for the first half, is just very slide driven. Shouldn't take us too long to work our way through it. I'm happy to sort of stay on at the end and do some live software presentation for those that may wish to see it in action. So we'll move on. So KnowledgeSmart is a skills assessment service, and our focus is entirely on helping customers understand how well their people can use the software that they've invested in. So by the time you get to employing somebody to run Revit or Navisworks or MicroStation or something like that, you've spent a lot of money to hire them, you're spending a lot of money to employ them, you've spent a lot of money on hardware and software to get there. So our customers want to know that they're actually making the best of that investment. So we identify skills gaps and training needs, and that's our goal. That last point on there is quite important. We ourselves, we're not a provider of training and learning material or services. We help you understand where your people will need some training, and then how that training is delivered is where you work with SolidCAD to develop the training program to close those skills gaps that KnowledgeSmart has identified. So this slide there is just the kind of the corporate slide that we have to put in. So a little bit from Rory Vance, our CEO and founder, up on the top left-hand corner, and you can read the about us. I've just told you about that. We've been going about 10 years, so we've been in this business a fairly long time, and I would think that over that period of time, we've probably done well over 500,000 assessments of people's skills. So our objective in business is first of all, try and make the assessment process as engaging as possible. You know, nobody likes being tested, and you know, that goes for all of us here. I sure as heck didn't like having to sit down and take a test to pass for my driving license, and I don't expect anyone else did either. So we try and make it as pleasant a journey as possible for the users. Once you've got some results on board from having assessed people's skills, we then like to give you the tools to really slice and dice the data and get a better understanding of what does that mean, having assessed people, what's it mean to you, and what can you do about fixing any issues that you've identified. We're based in the UK. We have customers around 19 countries. We are predominantly in the English language speaking world. They are mainly companies in the architectural engineering construction business, but not exclusively. About 30,000 plus users each year take assessments with us. We do partner up with companies like SolidCAD, virtually exclusively in the Autodesk channel. We don't write the assessments ourselves. We have a team of about 20 plus authors from around the world, and we typically would choose people who are well known in their field, who may author textbooks or give presentations at conferences about the particular software title. And in total, we've got something like 80 different assessment titles in our off-the-shelf library. As some example assessment topics that we have. And in addition to those, you'd get something for Excel and Word, as you can see there, project for the Microsoft products, predominantly around an Autodesk and BIM platform. Some of our current subscribers, so this is a subscription process, and I will be talking about the costs a little bit later on. So it is, you subscribe to this on an annual basis. That's some of our customers there. We range in quite, probably the smallest customers we have would be something around 25 users, so people who've got a relatively small team, up to some major global companies like Mott MacDonald, and they have offices throughout the world and thousands of users taking the assessments. So the reasons we're here and that our customers use us, I put some of them down there. Of course, the national sport here in the UK is soccer. And certainly in the Premier League in soccer, when a new manager takes over, they sack the last manager, they employ a new manager. New manager comes in and somebody suddenly gives them £100 million to spend on new players, so they get rid of half the squad and buy a whole new team in. And of course, that's not how life is in the real world. We have the team of people we have. We might change a few around the fringes, but by and large, we've got to make the best of what we have, and that's what we're about. We strongly believe that learning is a continuum. Everybody is somewhere on there. The problem is they don't all know exactly where they are. The saying of "we don't know what we don't know" is absolutely right. And so KnowledgeSmart just helps identify for the employer and for the individual just where they are on that learning path. And if I think of one of our global customers, they basically make all of the assessments available to all of their staff that need to take them. And their message is just go take the assessment, figure out for yourself what areas you need to improve on, go away, do the training because they've provided some training and learning material, go back, take the assessment. And they just expect that their teams of people will just use it as a self-development tool in their circumstances. And those repeat assessments are important because when you do the initial one to try and work out where the training is going to be, you'll then spend some time and some money training people, or follow up that with another assessment, just so you can actually see, was it effective, what stuck, who was listening, who wasn't listening. Very important to repeat it. This is not a one-off activity that you do just once. And there's all these costs that are associated with not having people trained in the best way possible, not feeling satisfied about they understand the best way to use the software, or perhaps having somebody who's actually really good at the software who's not in the right place and perhaps is being underutilized. And I'm not going to pretend that KnowledgeSmart is going to help you to fix all of those problems that we see listed there, but we are a tool to help with that process of reducing those costs. So a little bit now about how it works. I'm just going to step you through the main steps of the process here. So in our assessments, there are 9 different question types, and you can see them listed down here. So each one of those, you'll get a mix of those question types in the assessment. And we collect those questions into functional modules. So if we have a look at this panel that's on the left-hand side, this is a Revit for Architecture 2020 fundamentals test. Brackets I because it's imperial. There's also a brackets M for metric as well. And what we do is we've broken down fundamentals, or the author's broken down fundamentals into very specific topic areas. And you'll see that if we look at user interface, we've got user interface brackets K and user interface brackets T. So brackets K means that those questions in that module, those collections of questions are knowledge-based. So they're going to ask the user, what do you know about using this software? And a brackets T is task-based. So now we're actually going to put to the user, well, that's fine. What can you do in the software? And about 70% of the questions and the time spent in one of our assessment is task-based. So it's working in the software itself. As you'll see here, we've got in our test library for this 96 questions in total, and 26 of them will be presented during the assessment. So there's a degree of randomization. So if I sit the assessment twice, the chances of seeing exactly the same 26 questions are quite slim. If I sit the assessment and my colleague sits the assessment, the chances of both of us seeing exactly the same questions are slim. So there is a little bit of randomization in there again, just to make sure that when you do that retest, you're not confronting people with exactly the same test that they sat before. So there's an administrator for the system, at least one. There can be many throughout the firm, but there's at least one administrator. And it's the administrator's job to invite one or more people to take one of the assessments from the library. So the KnowledgeSmart off-the-shelf content, the OTS titles, each one of those, as I said, about 70% task-based, 30% knowledge-based. And the assessments can also be customized specific for each firm's needs. So if you review our content and think, well, actually, there's some things in there that we would never ask our team to do, there's no point in asking questions about it, that's fine. We can take those questions out of the assessment. On the other hand, if you think there are some things that are really important to our business that this doesn't cover, then someone like SolidCAD can actually help you write those questions to put those questions into the assessment. So it's a very flexible system. So here in this case, you'll see in the screen panel, we're inviting Revit for Architecture 2020 fundamentals. I've got a number of people, my employees. As you see, I'm a very arts-based business, and we're going to invite them to take an assessment. So an email arrives in the inbox, and so Leonardo da Vinci's been invited here to take this assessment, Revit for Architecture 2020 fundamentals, and it provides him with his username down here, a password, and a link to the assessment. So that's going to arrive. This text here, which is the invitation text, is completely customizable. So you can edit that to give the message, use the words that you would like to convey. This is why we want you to take this assessment. This is what's going to be happening following up. You're going to have a review, or we're going to arrange some training courses based on the team's results. So whatever message you'd like to give, you can edit this bit here so that it's absolutely spot on for your program. Once they click on the link, they log in. This is the welcome screen. So the welcome screen just collects some information about this person. They can say which industry, discipline they are, an architect, a civil engineer, what their primary role might be, what country, what state, and they can give a little clue as to where they think their knowledge is. This is all optional, doesn't have to be completed, but an awful lot of our customers do like to collect that because they find it quite useful information. Particularly around here, we have something that we recognize called the perception gap, and it is quite interesting to sort of compare afterwards where somebody thinks they are on this scale to where they actually turn up when they've done an assessment that is scored. So once they get into the assessment, this would be a typical page that they would have. This is question, you can see this is question number 3. This is the title. There's some text with it. There's an image in this particular question. So we have a question navigator. There are the 26 questions. You can navigate in any order. You can answer them in any order. You can go back. You can change your answers. Nothing determines the order in which you answer questions or which answers you give until you hit the final submit button at the end, when everything then is submitted to the system. So you can navigate around, and down at the bottom here, I've identified it as number 4. We have a request training button. So somebody could sit here, have a look at this question and think, yeah, okay, I think I know how to answer this and I'm going to answer it, but actually, you know, I'm not that confident and I probably wouldn't mind some training on this. So there's a request training button, and that comes out in reports at the end. So collectively, you can start to understand where people need training and where they think they need training. Once that's complete, they've answered all 26 questions, they've submitted it to the system, it's automatically marked within seconds. So you don't need to worry about a CAD manager or a BIM manager or somebody spending time going through all the assessments. The system marks it and it produces a report. And the report is by and large available to the user who's just taken the assessment, and also it can be copied by email to the administrator. The result is certainly available within the account, but if you'd like to know the moment somebody's completed the test, you can have that communicated to you by email. And this is a typical what a summary report looks like: date it was completed, what the assessment was, how long it took, score, and how many times they logged in. We always record the logins, because if you see 1 or 2 logins, you know that somebody's completed this assessment in almost one go. If you see 10 logins, then they've probably had a look, gone away, tried to find an answer, come back, answered something, gone away again, which isn't in the spirit of the self-development of the assessment. Now, if we expand that a little bit, this is what you would see expanding up a question. So question number 2, we repeat the question text. This was the answer that we expected. 3, this was the answer that the person gave. It's wrong, and you can see up here they scored 0. Now, for every question in our library, we do provide some coaching notes, and this is about as much training as we ever do. And the idea of the coaching note is, rather than just tell you you scored 0 and have you sit there thinking, do you know, I'm sure I got that right, or I don't know why I got it wrong, and having to go ask somebody, you've immediately got something that says, this is how the author would have expected you to answer this question. So you can get some feedback straight away, immediate coaching, and if there are files available, which there are, you can download them here. So there might be a small PDF file or some images, or even a little video to help explain how this question could have been answered correctly. So we're not trying to hide anything from anybody. This is really, truly in the spirit of helping them develop their skills. Now, if we go back, because I've forgotten something there. So here we have training tags. So for every question in the library, there are some training tags associated with it. So you can see for this one, it's sheets and views and scale. And what the report does is it collects at the end and it calls them skills gaps. So if you get a question wrong, it says, well, you've got the question wrong, and the training tags associated with that question are these. And it pulls them all together and it puts them in one place. So for this individual, at the end of the report, it gives you an idea of what their individual skills gaps are. Now, of course, if you multiply that by 20 or 50 or 100 times, we'll see in a moment, you can start to get some idea of the team's skills gaps. Okay, so now that's taking an assessment On average, our assessments are around 1 to 1.5 hours. That's the length of time it takes to complete them. And they're all web-based, so somebody needs to have Revit software or AutoCAD software or Rhino software, whatever the assessment's going to be about, because they are going to be asked to take the test. But other than that, everything else is delivered via the internet. And then once you've got the data, you want to do something with it, because we've assessed 100 people, we got lots of results, there's lots of numbers, they don't look very exciting on a page, so what shall we do with it? So we give you a number of tools. The first is that there are some tools inside of the KnowledgeSmart account. And then the second thing we do is that we provide a very comprehensive export, which can be loaded up into a visualization tool, of which we are finding Power BI to be the most commonly used across the AEC industry in recent times. I imagine that's partly because it's very good, and partly because it's free if you've got Microsoft Office as part of your subscription, which most people do. So inside of the software here, so there's just a very simple performance spread chart. So how have these 4 people done on this particular assessment, Revit Architecture 2019 Fundamentals? So you can see the numbers, but it helps to just visualize it. So Picasso is pretty quick and quite accurate in what he does, and Matisse is quite accurate but a little bit slow, and Van Gogh is not that accurate really and takes quite a long time. So immediately just gives you an idea of who is a good performer here, who's going to need some training, and I can go and dig down as to what training might be required. This shows the skills gap. So this is pulling together those training tags that we looked at, and it's doing it for a group of people. So you start to see true north coordinate scheduled, shared locations. These are the things that more often than not, people are not getting right. So there's no point in spending time training people off the bottom here where we're getting to green, because actually you're telling them the things they already know quite well. Let's spend some time up here developing a training course that addresses the issues, the bits that they don't know very well. We give you some benchmarking. So we obviously collect a lot of data throughout the year. We make that available as a benchmark. So here you can have a look and say, okay, well, for this Revit for Architecture 2019 Fundamentals, the average score in my business is 64%. The benchmark across the whole of the KnowledgeSmart world for doing this is 67.5. So I'm a little bit below where the rest of the world is. It's taken 1 hour and 23 minutes, and the average time is 1 minute 5. So I'm a little bit slower, and I'm a little bit below the global average. And if anybody wants to go have a look, there is a website, www.2dimforbim.com, and we have our big 5 results, and you can go and have a look at Revit Architecture, Structure, MEP, AutoCAD, and Civil 3D. And we sort of publish the collected results from around the world, and in North America, for the United States, we break it down a little bit further by state, but you get to see the range of scores and times that we're seeing in this benchmarking activity. And now we'll go to Power BI. So Power BI is something we've been working on quite extensively for the past 12 months or so to get a really comprehensive export. And I'm going to show you now some visuals. It's just a selection. We provide a template with the system, which is a template that uses a number of these visuals, provides you with it to take the data in and get this information for yourself. And some of the visuals that are here are ones that we've customized for specific customers. So this is a fairly straightforward one. This is a Revit for Architecture assessment. I've taken the names off for confidentiality reasons, but this is just ranking everybody down from 91% at the top to 42% at the bottom. So you get an idea where everybody sits in the results of this assessment. In this particular one, this was a customer of ours who was doing some BIM awareness training. So they're looking at how well do our team understand the basics of BIM and the latest specifications, and they decided to break them up. So somebody who scores 76 to 100% is in the top rank, mid is 66 to 75%, and low is less than 65. And if you get mid or low, they have specific training courses which they expect you to participate in, as they want to get everybody up to the top level. And then they do it by location. So you can see here is their head office, and this is their main branch office that they have. And you can see how many of each bracket they've got in each of the locations. This particular one is looking again at training. So on the left-hand column here, this is incorrect questions. So as much as training tags will point you to the things that people don't know, it's just as useful to look at which questions get answered incorrectly most often. And that's what this column's showing you. So conceptual massing, it's only 40% of the time is that question answered correctly. So again, this is giving you some good pointers as to which areas require training. Here are some training requests. So people have put training requests in for these things. And over here, we do allow people to skip a question. So if they don't want to guess and they don't really know, they can just skip the question. We collect that data. So here you start to see which questions people have skipped. So it means they didn't really want to even hazard a guess. So there's probably some areas up there that they want to address. Here's looking at the priority training tags for this assessment. And just a nice, easy visual way to see that, you know, if you're going to be training people, spend time around here, because there's a lot of times that training tag appears. Don't spend too much time around here, because by and large, these areas people know quite well. And training requests, I talked about, you can get training requests out, and here's a report of it, so you can see which things have been come up most often when people have requested training. In this particular one, this customer was just looking at the split of performance between the various job roles within their business, and it doesn't necessarily tell us too much. I mean, if we look from a right or wrong point of view of scoring from the assessment, so Revit architecture, this is a specific interiors one we do. So the associate and VP is at 68%. Probably don't go in there very often, so we wouldn't expect them to be scoring highly. The architects who are in there, they've scored 98% on this. So, you know, obviously for this firm, they're pretty confident that following all the training they did, they're now getting some good performance out, and that people know how to use the software. Here's an individual scorecard. So I've just got two of these now. So this is a person, this is an individual who's doing quite well. They're scoring 89% in 58 minutes. So 89% is well above the company benchmark. So this is the average for the company, that black line there. This is the time average for the company. So this person is faster and quicker than your company average. And you can see how they've done in each of the modules down the side. And by and large, in terms of training tags, this person, they've scored pretty well, but it looks like, you know, they ought to maybe brush up on their ability with the massing functionality. And then we can look at someone else here who scored 42% in 56 minutes, so quite quick, but actually the score wasn't that good. And again, we can start to see which areas, which modules of the assessment they struggled with. So design options, they've done pretty well. Down here in rooms and sheets, they obviously not quite as good. And massing, shortcuts, dimension and elements are coming out as fairly major parts of their training requirement. So that's looking at Power BI. There's lots of Power BI work we can do, and I'm happy to share some more with anybody who'd be interested in it. Now let's look at the pricing structure. So a KnowledgeSmart subscription, it lasts for 12 months. It's based on two factors: the number of users to be tested during that year, and the number of required library topics to be included in the assessment mix. And if you go onto our website, you will find this pricing matrix. So it's there, it's public, it's relatively easy to navigate. So let's start by looking at the number of users. So we break it into bands. So let's suppose that you're a firm, you've got 55 people there that you would like to be assessed as part of this program throughout the year. You'd probably choose somewhere around the 100 band, because it's more than 50, it's less than 100, so you'd come into this band and you'd like two test topics. Now, what's a test topic? So a test topic for us is a headline test topic such as Revit for architecture, Revit for structure, Revit for MEP, AutoCAD, Civil 3D. Those are headline test topics. So if I wanted AutoCAD Civil 3D and Revit structure, that would be 2 test topics. And if I want to assess up to 100 people, I'll be paying 2150 Canadian dollars for the year for those people. It also entitles me to do an equal number of assessments if I want to screen anybody that I'm looking at hiring. So I could do up to another 100 assessments for any potential new hires. And I can assess those people as often as I want. So I will get, let's say, the 2 main test topics. If we go for Revit for architecture and AutoCAD, you would have probably something around 12 to 14 assessment titles for that. So when we say Revit for architecture, that isn't one title. That's Revit for interiors, that's Revit content creation, project process, architecture fundamentals, architecture advanced, architecture express, which is a short one used for new hire screening. So it's more than one test. So between the 2 headline titles, you probably get something like 14 assessments. They're released for each year, 2018, 2019, 2020 release years. When 2021 comes out, we'll be updating the assessments to match the software release year. And in addition, we normally then throw in the lower tier titles as part of the package. So you get Excel and Word and Project and Navisworks and Rhino. Those kind of titles will come in anyway as part of having a subscription. So there are no license keys, tokens, or seats. So there'll never come a point if you have a KnowledgeSmart subscription where you won't be able to get somebody to take the assessment. There's no software to install. It's completely web-based. So this is really done on a discussion up front and an agreement that about fits your business. If you're saying I want 50 to 100 users, and actually at the end of the year you've done 103 users as part of your assessment, we probably aren't going to be that bothered. That's not the way we work. We're not going to suddenly find a reason to bump you up to the next band for those extra 3. So we're quite an easy company to do business with. It is just a discussion point. What do we think you're going to do during the year? And when it comes to renewal, what did you actually do? And some of our customers will go up because they used it a bit more than they expected, and some will go down a band the next time because they used it a little bit less than expected. That's fine. It can flex. It can go up or down. You can assess the user multiple times throughout that subscription period using any one of the assessments. And as I've said, equal number of new hires can be assessed during the subscription period. So that sort of ends the slide bit of the presentation, which I've covered what it is, who we are, how it works. I hope I've just taken you through the steps and given you an idea of that. Some of the insights, the visuals, the understanding that the data is giving you about how people are performing, covered the cost side of things, and I guess we can take questions if we have them. Michael, over to you.
Don't have any questions at this point, Tony.
Okay. So what would you like me to do now? Are we done, Michael? I mean, I've given my presentation. If you want to collect questions later as people get them, I'm happy you email me and we answer them.
Actually, sorry, I apologize. There is one question here. I'm just trying to open up the panel here. Just got turned off. No. Actually, in regards to training, administrative training and end user training is all part of the support that you offer as part of this. Is that correct, Tony?
Absolutely, absolutely. All of the updates to the software, all of the updates to the library. There's 2 initial training sessions that go on. So when somebody signs up for the subscription, we usually spend about an hour just going through the basics, how to get users into your system, how to send invites out, how to understand when the results are coming in, and just do the basic administration tasks. We then normally leave you alone for a month or so to actually go and do those tasks. And once you start and collect some data, we then have a second session, which is to provide some help with understanding what data you've got and how you might get that into things like Power BI and get some visualizations going. And the fee that you see on the website is the fee that covers everything. So there are no, unless there are no additional fees that you would pay in the year. So that includes support updates and our time to help you.
Great. Well, thank you, Tony. That's great. If that's the end of your presentation, I'd like to thank you again and everyone else for attending. A SolidCAD representative will follow up with everyone just to make sure there is a good understanding of the potential of their needs and what the product can offer, and provide any further information such as trials as well, which is available.
Yep, the trials are available. We're happy to help you set them up, and again, do some initial training for the trial. That's all part of the process.
Great. So SolidCAD will be hosting similar webinars every month. So if you're interested in attending more, we do send out reminders to our clients, but also you can go to solidcad.ca to our events calendar, and they're all listed there. Tony, once again, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It was very well done. And for everyone,
thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you everybody who's taken time out to listen today.
Yes, and everyone for attending. Thank you again. Have a good week.
Okay, thank you. Bye.